Namo Dita Fa. Thank you for joining me for our daily practice check-in. Listen, listen, listen. This beautiful sound calls us back to our true home. The fifth mindfulness training. Aware of the suffering caused by unmindful consumption, I vow to cultivate good health, both physical and mental, for myself, my family, and my society by practicing mindful eating, drinking, and consuming. I will ingest only items that preserve peace, well-being, and joy in my body and my consciousness, and in the collective body and consciousness of my family and society. I'm determined not to use alcohol or any other items that contain toxins, such as certain TV programs, magazines, books, films, and conversations. I am aware that to damage my body or my consciousness with these poisons is to betray my ancestors, my parents, my society, and future generations. I will work to transform violence, fear, anger, and confusion in myself and in society by practicing a diet for myself and for society. I understand that a proper diet is crucial for self-transformation and the transformation of society. For our Dharma lessons, we've been reading Ajahn Muninda's book, Unexpected Freedom. Today we're continuing a chapter on when we fall in love with the section, The Wound of Separateness. To say that we uncover a natural ability might make it sound like being divided is all wrong. It was not all wrong. In childhood, we grew gradually from a state of undifferentiated identification with our parents and the sensual world into a perception of separateness or relative selfhood. The child development theorists describe how an individuated sense of being a separate somebody is constellated by about the age of 7. By that stage, a personality of sorts, an ego, has become established together with the perception of me and you and the world out there. Along with these perceptions come all my desires. From the age of 7 onwards, there's a lot more substance to the demanding of a child. Accompanying this developing ego, there's my ability to say no to you when you want something from me. There's more solidity, and the ideas of my rights and my boundaries develop. This development of my way is natural and necessary for us as humans. But it's very useful to understand how, as this momentum increases, there's a diminishing capacity for abiding in the happiness of the undifferentiated state, the state of simply being at one with what is happening. The pleasure and freedom of at-one-ment that we knew as children becomes less and less accessible to us as we grow up. Then, as we approach early adolescence, we start to look for ways to escape the discomfort of this perceived separateness with its agonies of loneliness and dividedness. And not surprisingly, around this time we have our first experience of falling in love. Something happens. We don't quite know what it is, but we become incredibly interested in somebody else, and it's not mom or dad. It's magical, it's frightening, and there's an excitement and enthusiasm that promises to free us from all unhappiness. So we have fallen in love, but we still carry the wound of separateness that occurs in childhood. That wound means that there's no longer the opportunity simply to be one with life. Now we find that there's me and you as well as the world. When we fall in love, there is the first major disturbance of our separate identity and the first hint of the task ahead of us. As if out of instinct we passionately desire to return to at-one-ment. How do I return to that beautiful state I used to be in, where there wasn't a care in the world? I feel obstructed. I feel cut off. I feel only half alive. In presenting this particular perspective on falling in love, I'm not saying that this is all there is to it. This is one pathway of contemplation into an important and complex area of our lives. Falling in love can appear extremely attractive to a person at one time, yet terrifying at another. What is called for is a way in which we can ask the most challenging questions of our hearts while feeling free and able to listen to the response. Initially, it might appear that by following our passionate desires, we will get what we want. And what we want, after all, is to be happy. We think that by following our desire to be happy, we will become happy. We believe that there is such a thing as true happiness and that falling in love is a way to get it. Most of these beliefs and thoughts are totally unconscious at the time. The difficulty which we encounter during these initial efforts is that, as we follow the impulse to gratify desire, the momentum of my way increases. I feel more and more that I must have that which I long for. With this comes a corresponding intensification of the fear of not getting the object of my desire. The increase in force of the compulsion of my way gives rise to an absolutely equal increase in the fear of not getting my way. With the increase in the force of the fear of not getting my way, there is the painfully diminished capacity for simply being loving. Tragically, we don't notice this happening. All we know is that the passionate longing is increasing and that we feel trapped. It's rare that we receive the kind companionship of others who would guide us through our adolescent struggles to wisdom. Hope for true love and lasting meaning increases, yet the clouds of loneliness roll in and our hearts grow cold. Our life continues to unfold in myriad ways, but now we've got this divided consciousness. We believe strongly in right and wrong and good and bad. We have the ability to make judgments about how things should and shouldn't be, and about how I should and shouldn't be. And it doesn't stop. Years go by. The momentum of it all seems to increase, and yet there is still this inkling that somehow this business of love is terribly important. We write poetry about it, sing songs about it, and from time to time we experience something that we call falling in love. Yet we are not freed from our increasingly chaotic dividedness. In fact, everything about us becomes divided, even our professional lives. We talk about being at work. There's who we are at home and there's who we are at work. Even if you're a professional meditator, a monk, or a nun, there can be dividedness. I hear people talk about the real practice, which means there must be the unreal practice. The real practice, they say, is when we're meditating. They say that when we're doing the real practice, that is when we're on retreat. There are no problems. As soon as we start talking and relating to others, doing work and so on, then we get all these problems. But if there is our real practice and our unreal practice, then we are living in a state of fragmentation. Relationships, talking to people, and being at work appear as obstructions to well-being. Who is responsible for that division? Where does this idea of real practice and unreal practice exist? In our divided minds, in our divided hearts. Sometimes we're sitting in meditation and the mind is not how we want it to be. Perhaps we're filled with longing for intimacy that is causing an inner struggle as we sit there on our cushion. If we look carefully, we'll find that there is a voice that says, it shouldn't be this way. I shouldn't be like this. Where does that division of what should or shouldn't be exist? It exists in our own divided minds, our own divided hearts. We are the ones who are setting up conditions against each other. We need to know this. May all beings be well. May all beings be happy. May all beings be peaceful. Namo Adidava. Thanks so much for joining me today.